Good evening and salam. I am Miriam Afalabi, a member of the MACFEST team. I'm delighted to welcome you to MACFEST 21. This evening, we are thrilled to host our third event in celebration of International Women's Day, the Black Queens of Islam. We're delighted to introduce you to our host for this panel, Amal Abdulhakim Douglas. I'd like to say a few words about Amal. Amal lives in Norwich in the east of England. He was born in Gloucester and has spent much of his early life in Cheltenham. At age 13, he relocated to Jamaica when his parents decided to return to their homeland. He attended high school, then university in Jamaica, before returning to the UK. He then worked as an accountant in the City of London before establishing his first solo business venture, One Stop Shipping and Travel. He is currently a freelance business consultant and advisor under the brand Olympic Sprint Business Coaching, and has authored several books, including Zakat, Raising a Fallen Pillar, 7 Secrets of Successful Fundraising, and Call of the Twice Removed. He wrote and produced a stage play, Diary of a Son of Africa, and is also the founder of the Open Trade Network. Before I hand over to Amal, I would like the audience to please follow MACFEST on our media sites of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, so you'll be notified of our upcoming events. Thank you, and over to you, Amal. Sorry, you're muted, Amal. We can't hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Mariam, for that. Can you all hear me now? Okay, good.
Yes, we can.
And thank you to MACFEST for letting me participate in this wonderful event. I've been learning a lot about MACFEST and the great things they've been doing over the years. So it's great to be a part of it, and I hope that continues. Our speaker this evening is Ismeal Lea South, someone who I've known for a while and admire greatly. His official title would be Independent Cultural Youth and Community Consultant. A mouthful, I know, but he's also the founder and director of the Salam Project, through which he does a lot of research initiatives for universities, for local governments, for other educational institutions, publishing houses, etc. He does a lot of research projects and community projects, a lot of stuff going on with the Salam Project. Ismail's a very busy man. More importantly, I would say, although it's not in his sort of biography, Ismail's really a connector. Ismail really does connect a lot of people. People call Ismail for everything. People call Ismail for jobs. They call him for housing. They call him for spouses. They call him for PR. They call him for lots of stuff. And even today, Ismail called me earlier this afternoon because he was linking up the Daily Mail with them. They wanted someone for a story, and he thought I'd fit. And he gave me a call, and he was in the middle of calling lots. And I refused, actually. I wasn't the right fit. But Ismail is like that. So constantly, he's the man that people go to for everything, to be connected. So you've got this is a fantastic connection that you've got here today. Also, Ismail is about to release, I think in about July, his first book, an overdue book, called The Unknown Black History of the UK. It's long overdue, and that should be coming out in July. And I hope that we'll all, stay in touch, and we'll get feedback for that so we can pre-order when the time comes. And also, I know he's working on another book, which hopefully he'll tell you about during the course of the evening. So I'd like to hand over to Ismail, and I'm very much look forward to listening to what he has to say. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat or in the Q&A. You can send questions, and we'll hopefully get Ismail to address them afterwards. Over to you, Ismail.
Jazakallah Sheikh Hajj Amal Douglas for that wonderful intro. Thank you. I'm very honored. And I also have to say that Hajj Amal Douglas is not only a good friend, he's a great advisor, and he's a great mentor. He's been a great mentor to me, an advisor to me for, my God, for over 15 years now. And through Hajj Amal, help and assistance, he's helped me to use various initiatives and various resources to do the projects that I do. Thanks. So Hajj Amal, thank you very much. So without further ado, the name of this presentation is celebrating the Black African and Afro-Caribbean Queens of Islam. I'll just give you a reason why I'm doing this presentation, because people might be thinking, you're a man, you're a youth worker. Why are you doing a presentation about African and Afro-Caribbean Muslim women in Islam? There's two main reasons. The first reason is my daughter. My daughter is a Muslim young lady. My wife is of Nigerian heritage. I'm of Jamaican heritage. So my daughter is of Nigerian and Jamaican heritage, and she's a Muslim. When she in school, the Muslims and the Black community don't really mix. They're very separate. So my daughter being a Black Muslim, she compensates with the Black community young girls and with the Asian Muslim young girls. And sometimes she hears a lot of ignorant statements from both sides. So I've done this presentation originally to show to my daughter. And I thought it was important that she understands that there is nothing wrong and there's nothing, because she thought there was something wrong with her. Even though there were another 6 or 7 African, Afro-Caribbean Muslim girls in her school, but she felt upset about certain things. So the reason why I've done this presentation is to show that there's nothing wrong of being a Muslim of African and Afro-Caribbean heritage, and there's a long legacy. So you're not, so don't worry, and it's due to ignorance on both sides. Okay, Bismillah. So without further ado, the first sister I'm going to touch upon is Halima. We're pleased with her. And she was the wet nurse of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So we all know the story of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and whereby the Arabs, the Qurayshi Arabs, they had a custom of when the child is born, after a few months, they would go off into the desert where they would stay with a wet nurse. And the wet nurse Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is Sister Halima, and she was of Abyssinian heritage. And there's been many hadiths and writings and scholarly writings about her, even until when Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in his adulthood, when he was in his prophethood. When he used to see her, he used to stand up and show respect as if Sister Halima was his mother. Another sister of African heritage around the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the midwife of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and that's Sister Ayman. So Ayman, sometimes referred to as Sister Baraka, and she was some of the scholars called her the foster mother, and some people called her, she was like the right-hand lady of the mother of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Amina, may Allah be pleased with her. And basically, she was the one, when Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam first came out of the womb, she was the first one to hold him, okay? And there's a sheikh called Ustad Bilal Assad, and who's an Australian sheikh. He's done a beautiful lecture about her, where he calls her one of the women of paradise, okay? So, Ayman. Now, as we know, we always hear about the first, because of current political climate, we just say the Islamophobic death, and we always hear about Sister Sumaya. Now, Sister Sumaya was of Ethiopian heritage as well, and she was an activist for Islam, and she was very assertive, and for her assertiveness, and because being an ex-slave, she was murdered and killed. So many scholars have said she's the first Islamophobic death during the time of the Prophet Muhammad out of all the early followers. One of the actual oldest the oldest university in the world that gives an actual, how can I say, certificate, an oldest certificate giving university in the world is based in North Africa, and it's called Al-Qarawiyyin. It's in North Africa, and there's many well-known sheikhs and scholars who have studied at this university. But what a lot of people don't know is the actual founder, the person who funded this university, was a sister called Fatima, okay? And she inherited the money from her father, and she used part of her inheritance to fund this masjid, okay? And it's one Al-Qarawiyyin University. And so it's the Guinness World Book of Records and recognized the university as the oldest continuously operating institution of higher education in the world. And that's based in North Africa. Also, we all hear the story about the University of Timbuktu. Timbuktu, based in West Africa. We all hear the wonderful stories of scholarship, the wonderful stories of knowledge and learning. But what many people are not aware is the actual founder of the university was a sister called Baktu. So the university is actually founded by an West African woman, and basically she's the founder of Timbuktu University. We know through wonderful sheikhs and scholars like Dr. Sheikh Abdul Hakim Quick and many others, they go into the teachings and the happenings of Timbuktu. Now, many people are aware of Islamic African history in Africa, but many people are not aware about the rich Islamic African history on the Asian continent. Now, there's a wonderful historian by the name of Sylviane Diouf, and she's done an exhibition and some research into African Muslim women from Africa who traveled to India, where they lived, where they became people of influence, and where they became rulers. So there were many, but I'm only going to pick up on a few. One is called Queen Meher Lekta Begum, Queen Yasmin Mahal, Queen Afroz Mahal, and Queen Bamaba Mullah. So these were African people and who were queens in India of African heritage. And this is documented in a book called The African Diaspora in India, Assimilation, Change, and Cultural Survivals by Amina Matthews. And one of them was Maya Misra, who was born in the mid-16th century, and she was a well-known spiritualist in East Africa, some say on the border of Somalia and Ethiopia. And basically there were some kings and royal family members in India who were going through certain issues around the jinn and spirits. They had certain problems. And the word got around that there's a woman in East Africa who's the best person in challenging the jinns. So the king of India at the time sent his men to go and get her. And then she came from East Africa to India to help the royal family at the time to vanquish the demons and get rid of the jinns. So because of her fame and of her good integrity, when she passed away, they built a shrine in her honor. And it's a book called Devotional Practices of Pakistan and India by Shamim Bernie Abba, page 17, where they talk about her exploits and talk about her works, and whereby she was called by not only royal family members, but many dignitaries and VIPs. And she would also help the poor and needy who had no money too. And she was known to give them treatments and give them protection against evil jinns. And there was also an African princess warrior of India by the name of Begum Hazrat Mahal, who was an interrelative politician as well. And basically she was a warrior princess who fought a lot of wars, and she was of African heritage. There was a story about her in the Hindustan Times and the Indian Express. Now, this is a story called The Last King of India. There was a last king of India. His name was Sultan Rajid Ali Shah. And he was a notorious king of India, and he was very flamboyant. But what was unique about him, he only insisted on African female soldiers to be his bodyguards. He wouldn't trust any men to be his bodyguards, and he never trusted many locals from India to be his bodyguards, but he trusted African female soldiers to be his dressed bodyguards, and they dressed in red jackets and rose-colored silk trousers. And this is written in a book called The Last King of India, Wajid Ali Shah, by British historian Rosie Llewellyn Jones. And they go into the story. It's a very interesting story. When I found out about it, I was so thrilled and very excited. Now, back to the continent of Africa. There was a military princess. She was a princess first, and then eventually she became a queen, called Queen Amina. She's from West Africa. Today, the place where she's from is northern Nigeria, known as Kano. where I've been honored to go. May Allah bless all the people there. And basically she, as we know, these cultures are very male dominant societies. And because of her strong upbringing from her mother, who was very assertive, very strong, and very, how can I say, she was always giving tough love to her daughter. She allowed Amina to grow up as a military general. And she made lots of conquests around West Africa. And she expanded their kingdom to the biggest it could ever be at the time. And the actual, for those that don't know, there's certain TV shows that are inspired by her story. And also Lupita will be playing her in a forthcoming film, a Hollywood film about her life. Because not only was she a strong female military general in West Africa, she was also a dedicated Muslim as well. Now, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I thought this was about African and Afro-Caribbean Muslims, but you've got a lady of Asian heritage there. What's going on? Is this the wrong slide? No. Basically, alhamdulillah, we've been honored to meet this lady. Her name is Dr. Afros. She's of Bangladeshi heritage, and she's a professor at the University of West Indies. Now she's retired, so I think I've been told she's gone, she retired back to Bangladesh. So we were honored, myself and my good friend Rakim, we were honored to meet her when she came to London, oh my gosh, around 14 years ago. And she's done a comprehensive study about this lady here we see on some Jamaican money. As my parents of Jamaica, this resonates with me personally. Now in Jamaica, one of the most famous women in Jamaican history is this lady here. Her name is called Nanny of the Maroons. Now the Maroons, for those that don't know, we hear stories about slavery. Yes, okay, we hear those stories. But what we don't really hear stories about were slavery and slave rebellions. And one of the most successful slave rebellions in the Caribbean was led by this lady here, Nanny of the Maroons. She was from a Ashanti tribe in West Africa, Ghana, and she was taken first by the Spanish to Jamaica. And then what happened is the British fought with the Spanish over Jamaica, and the British ran the Spanish soldiers out of Jamaica, whereby Nanny used that opportunity, because when she was taken from Ghana, she was already a princess. So she had a lot of respect and a lot of power on the slavery among the slaves. So she used that power to organize a slave rebellion when Jamaica was going through a transition from the Spanish to the English. And she freed thousands, tens of thousands of slaves from numerous slave plantations. Now she was causing so much trouble for the British. What the British had to do, the British had to make a treaty with her. So the royal family at the time, they drew up a contract and they asked her and her team to sign the contract. Okay, you cause us a lot of trouble. We'll give you your own land in Jamaica and we will never tax you. And she signed the contract. Now, what most people don't know is that agreement is still valid today. So this place in Jamaica is called Maroon Land. So when I go to Jamaica to see my family, there's a place called Maroon Land. But in Jamaica, it's a separate country because of this lady here with the money. Now, many of them, they still retain many of their traditional Ashanti traditions, okay? And some of the chiefs who I've been honored to meet, some of the chiefs are Muslim, and some of some of them are Muslim, some of them are practicing Muslim. But when the chiefs are Muslim, they don't enforce it on the rest of the population. And in Jamaica, the Maroon town and Maroon Land, they call it, it's governed by a separate country. So even recently, the Jamaican government tried to tax the people from Maroon Land, and they came out with the original contract that was signed by a member of the British royal family 300 years ago, saying, you can't tax us because we've got an indefinite agreement with the royal family of England. Now this is the story about Nanny of the Maroons. So most Jamaicans who are aware of their culture and heritage, of course, know who this lady is. Now this wonderful Bengali sister, Dr. Afros, she found some information to say that Nanny was actually a Muslim, and she shows some documented evidence in some old writings, in old books, to say before she used to go to war, she used to recite verses from the Quran and things like this. So she's done a comprehensive study. So you could imagine when she came out with her study in Jamaica, it was a big hoo-ha, and saying, well, how could you say that Nanny of the Maroons was a Jamaican? So because she's very beloved to many Jamaicans. So Dr. Avris, and basically she's done a comprehensive book that was funded also by the Saudi government, and talking about many famous Jamaican heroes being Muslim, and she shows documented evidence and proof. Right, scholar and sage, Nana Asma'u. Okay, Nana Asma'u is the daughter of Uthman Dan Fodio, and she wasn't only the daughter of a famous reformer in Nigerian Islam. She was a scholar, and she was a poet, she was a teacher, and she was an activist. And one of the things that she's very famous for is that she used to encourage Muslim women in West Africa to study Islam, study the deen. So as you know, us men are very selfish. Okay, so there were times when some of the women could say, sorry, I can't come out because of my husband. Sorry, my husband wants me to do this, I can't come out. So she done a fatwa stating, if your husband is not teaching you about the deen of Islam, if your husband is not teaching you about the deen of Islam, and if your husband is not benefiting you spiritually, you have to come to this. It's compulsory for you to come to our study circles. So you can imagine this caused a lot of upset with a lot of the men in various communities around West Africa. But because of her bloodline, because of her connections, the men couldn't, they could protest, but they couldn't do anything to her. So she was an activist for women in getting education, women scholarship, and she was also a poet, a sage. She used to do a lot of scholarly works of Islam, of Tawheed, of fiqh, but she used to do it in traditional languages, in poetry. And following in that line before Nana Asma'u, because normally many people who know generic information about West African Islam do mention Nana Asma'u, but these were her predecessors. So Sheikha Hani Al-Fulani, Asma'u bint Uthman Al-Fudi, Maryam bint Uthman Dan Fodio as well. So these were also female scholars from West Africa who done a lot to teach, empower women about Islam, and were not only scholars, but they were also activists who worked hard to get more women educated on the deen of Islam, and they done a lot of work in promoting scholarship among Muslim women of West Africa. Now, sports activism, okay? So many people just think, oh, Muslim women just complain, just do this, whatever, about the hijab. Now me, I'll be honest, I'm into basketball, okay? So I follow the British basketball team, and I follow the NBA in America. Now and again, I watch women basketball as well with the missus. But I was honored and inspired by these two sisters. One's from the UK and one's from America. So unfortunately, a few years ago, the Female International Basketball Association, they banned the hijab from their professional women basketball. So there were many talented female basketball players who wore the hijab who weren't allowed to play professional basketball. They could play in the college leagues, they could play in the amateur leagues, but they couldn't play in the professional leagues. So these sisters came together. So Sister Bilkis Abdul Qadir, and she's from Massachusetts in America, and Sister Asma al-Badawi, and she's from Bradford. And basically they petitioned and they campaigned against the Female International Basketball Association to enforce them. This is discrimination. Now, most people, including myself, thought they're never going to change. If they said there's no hijab, it's a wrap. It's not going to happen. But after campaigning, working together, they got the Female International Basketball Association to overturn the banning of the hijab, and now women can play professionally in the basketball leagues with the hijab, thanks to the works of these two sisters here, and a few others as well. But I noted these two because one was from the UK and one was from America. So Sister Bilqis Abdul Kadir and Sister Asma Al-Badawi. Okay, as a youth worker, I resonate with this sister, and I've been honored to meet the sister with help and support with other organizations. We were able to bring it to the UK. Now, as someone who does work against knife crime, gang crime, and things like this is my main work. I found out about this sister through my wife. And basically this sister's called Amina Matthews. She's from one of the most dangerous parts of America called South Side Chicago. This is how, so just for those that don't know, I was in Chicago, okay? And I would say long before I knew about her, someone said, okay, when you're in America, go and see this sister and her husband. So we got her details. So we went to this, there's a thing in Chicago called ISNA. We went to the ISNA event, and then we went to the taxi man and we showed him the address and yes, can you take us there? And he said, yes, inshallah, I'll take you. That is a Muslim taxi man. So he drove us there. He was driving us. And I was thinking, okay, when are we gonna get to this place? And he took us to the Muslim part of Chicago. But it was very nice and quiet. So I said, hold on, is this the place where I sent you? He said, forgive me, brother. This place, no taxis drive there after 8:30. So I cannot take you there. Forgive me, brother. So I was all upset. I'll be honest with you. I was kind of like, what are you doing? I'm paying you. And then I was able to phone them and they said, no, the brother, for him to do that, that means he has love and respect for you because it's not safe. So this sister does a lot of gang intervention work in Chicago. She helps to create truces between gangs, and she does a lot of work in taking a lot of young people out of the gangs. And she's won numerous awards from the Muslim community, the mainstream community, and the Black community for her work against knife and gang crime and gun crime in Chicago. Recently, she's now gone into politics, and she's planning to run in the next election to become a mayor and representative of parts of South Side Chicago. In activism, our sister Marguerite Aziza Hill, she does a lot of work against challenging racism and Islamophobia in America, and she's the co-founder of the Muslim ARC, okay, Muslim Anti-Racism Collaboration, and it's an organization that promotes education and liberation and challenging Islamophobia and racism in communities, okay? Also, another community activist is Sister Hind Maki, a second-generation Sudanese American sister. There's a lot of interfaith work and organizer for East African Muslim communities in Chicago. Now, this sister I've been honored to know personally. She used to volunteer with our organization, the Salam Project, and I learned so much from her. And she done so much for the Salam Project, I cannot put it, I'll be here all night. So this is a brilliant sister called Zakiyah Hussein. She's originally born in Denmark, Scandinavia, and she came to the UK at 13. So she excelled in school, excelled in education, and she got when she became 18, she became very involved in youth and community work in the Somali community. She was and is very passionate about empowering young girls from the Somali community, from the East African community. She's so, how can I say, famous for her work. She is known not only in London where she was based in West London, she's known all over the UK. In the Somali community, she's known all over the UK for her brilliant work. She's helped many Somali organizations to incorporate women programs, leadership programs for sisters. So because she has a deep love for Somalia, she has done what I could never do, and I could never do. She was sick and tired of seeing Boko Haram devastate her country, and she saw it as her personal mission to join the army and the police in Somalia, where she is on a manhunt because some of the Boko Haram, they killed some of her cousins. So she's now joined she's now the most senior the most senior female managing officer in the Somali police force and in history. And basically she's on the front line. So she's there. And Sister Zakiyah Hussein, she comes to the UK now and again. So there's big things for her. Some people are pointing out to be soon getting into politics. I don't know about that, but I know she's doing things that I would never do, but she's a very brave sister, mashallah. Now here's another brave sister, Sister Aisha Bakari Gambi. This sister was originally, she used to hunt antelopes in West Africa. And then unfortunately, some of her cousins and family relations got kidnapped by Boko Haram. And so she stopped hunting antelopes. And then she started to hunt members of the Boko Haram, because members of Boko Haram were kept on kidnapping women and girls and doing indecent things to them. So she was hearing these stories and she was just fed up of it. She used to go to the police and many other organizations and institutions, and they wouldn't do anything. So she said, you know what, I'm going to deal with it myself. So she's a vigilante. And as you know, I'm not promoting vigilantism, but I had to put this sister in the presentation because she's braver than me. So she hunts Boko Haram. And the Guardian newspaper heard about her story and they showcased her for her work. Yes, that's Sister Aisha Bakari Gambi. Another pioneer advocate is a educationalist from Nigeria and a journalist, Sister Bilkisu Yusuf. She does a lot of educationist work and promoted education in Nigeria specifically and West Africa. And she organized many female leadership programs and empowering young women and encouraging more women to learn, study into scholarship and higher education. Now, scholars of today, we have Ustada, Sister Isha Prime. She's a sister director of the Baraka Inc., based in Washington, DC. She converted to Islam over 20 years ago after being an international youth ambassador to Morocco and Senegal. After having participated in several circles of knowledge in the US, she decided to pursue religious studies in the so-called Middle East, okay, in Cairo, Egypt. And then she moved to Hadramaut in Yemen, where she enrolled. And she's now back in America, where she does a lot of women leadership programs, sister teaching, and she's also part of the Women's March. For those that don't know, when Mr. Trump was in power, there was a big Women's March, and she was one of the co-organizer of that. So Sister Isha Pipe, she's not only a scholar, not only an activist, but she's a doer as well. And she's working not only with the Muslim community, but with the mainstream communities as well. Sister Ustada Rakaya Modupe, she's a sister from the UK, well studied in the UK, and she's also the founder of a publishing company called Light Legacy Books, okay? And she studied she originally from the UK, born and bred in the UK. She went to study in Mauritania, went to study in various other Muslim countries where she learned Islam to a scholarly level, learned Arabic, and learned very thick and things like this. And she's a teacher, also an author. And now she's moved to America, where she's teaching and where she's empowering Muslim women in America. She comes back to the UK now and again, and she's publishing various books on positive and African Muslim scholars that are not being really emphasized or promoted in mainstream society, with the aim and intention to empower the next generation, our children, inshallah. Another scholar is Sister Sheikha Amina Matthews. She's a writer, does many writings about womanhood and Islam. Another woman advocate from the UK is Sister Adila Shabazz. She's born in Guyana in the Caribbean. She came to live in the UK at an early age in the late 60s, and she became an activist within the Black community, and then learning about Malcolm X and learning about Muhammad Ali and listening to Ahmadiyyat and so forth, she embraced Islam. She's from Brixton, South London, where she used to be a big advocate for women's Muslim rights in the UK. So unfortunately, some people, when they embraced Islam, they adopted certain misogynistic, certain ignorant mentalities about women, and she was in the forefront in challenging them about it and said, this is not taught by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is not taught by Islam. And sometimes mosques would say things like, no women allowed. She would go to the mosques and say, no, I'm gonna pray. Are you gonna tell me not to pray here? And the men, the most sexist, misogynistic, backward mosques would always make room for her to pray. So she was not only an imam, a faith leader, she was an activist for women's rights in Islam. And finally, I also have to say, she always made her home a refuge for sisters. So many sisters who were going through issues of domestic violence, going through issues of loneliness, depression, going through numerous other issues of separation, she would always invite them to her home with her children as well, present, and where they could stay for a few days, stay for a few weeks. So she wasn't a lady of just talk, she was a lady of heart and action and empowering Muslim women in communities. An academic from Sheffield is a wonderful sister called Dr. Muna Abdi. She's a lecturer. Originally, she's a lecturer in the University of Sheffield. Recently, she's left to start up her own education consultancy, but she's a researcher and she facilitates many programs in empowering young boys in communities, especially in Sheffield, who've been affected by permanent exclusion, youth unemployment. So another lady of action and academia at the same time. Sister Rasheed Hassan, she's originally a community worker with the Muslim Association of Nigeria in Peckham, in Southwark, and where they do a lot of brilliant programs there for empowering young people, empowering women. And then she caught the eye of the MCB. So when they heard about her and they saw her in action, they said, we got to get this woman on our team. So thankfully the MCB had sense to recruit her, and now she's worked up. She's now a general secretary assistant with the MCB, and she's very well educated, and she's an activist. She works hard for the Muslim community, working hard for women's rights. And yes, Sister Rasheed Hassan. Also, there's an online magazine. I think that it's on sabbatical at the moment because the sister is doing her master's. Sister Halima, she's a journalist originally with The Voice newspaper, and then she started up her own online magazine called the Black Muslim Times. Filmmakers, okay, we all like to watch films. So we have Sister Sheila Naima Nortley, who is a filmmaker who's done plenty of films for, if those don't know, Ashley Walters, Amila Lamine, some of the most famous urban British actors that you see on TV. She has done screenwriting for them. She has done directing or producing for them. Okay, and she's from South London. Also, Sister Nijla Basima is an award-winning filmmaker from the West Coast in the Bay Area, and she makes a lot of independent films. And also Sister Ifra Mansour, a Somali-American filmmaker who explores trauma through the eyes of the children. So a lot of these, their films are about certain various issues, and these are brilliant filmmakers that we'll be seeing, hopefully, inshallah, on Netflix in the future. Now, the Poetic Masters, I cannot leave without praising the poets. As we know, there are plenty of brilliant and numerous, a wealth of talent of African and Afro-Caribbean Muslim women poets, but I just picked 4. Okay, I wish I could have done more, but I haven't got enough time. So Sister Wasan Shar, a Somali Kenyan British writer and poet, and she's educated teacher, and she's also inaugurated one recently quoted by Beyonce. So Beyonce done the Lemonade album, and in the Lemonade album, I know most of you don't know Beyonce or know the Lemonade album, but just in case your kids do, there's some of the lyrics that were used by Beyonce that were taken from the poetry of Wasan Shah, and also misunderstood from New York. She's a pioneering Muslim hip hop rapper and poet from Queensbridge, New York. She's a brilliant rapper, poet, and an educator as well. We also have Poetic Pilgrimage. They're not only poets, they're not only rappers, they're activists, facilitators. Sakina's now writing plays. She's doing a lot of theater. Munera does a lot of work from Poetic Pilgrimage around mental health and women's empowerment. And then you have the Pearls of Islam. The Pearls of Islam do highly acoustic, spiritual poetry and expression that reflects the world they live in. And they're not only poets and rappers as well, they do a lot of community work through their community foundation called the Rabbani Project. We have a health advocate, Sister Dr. Aisha Hassan of Somali heritage, originally from Birmingham. Recently, she's moved to London, and now she's working on some excellent research on the issues of COVID, on how it's affecting African, Afro-Caribbean communities. And she's now advising the NHS on how they can engage better with African, Afro-Caribbean, Somali communities around the UK. So Dr. Aisha Hassan. And politics, okay, we have Sister Ilhan Omar. We all know her from America, a Somali-American politician from Minnesota. She was elected to the Democratic Party, okay. And we have Sister Tanzila Kambrani from Islamabad, Pakistan. Yes, no, not Kenya, not Senegal, not Jamaica, from Pakistan. Okay, she's the first African Pakistani lawmaker. Tanzila Kambrani has a master's degree in computer sciences from the University of Sindh. She has 3 children and hails from Matli Badin district in Sindh. For those who know Pakistan, they will know where that is. Forgive me, I do not know. Province. She has sufficient experience in politics, office, and she has been a local councillor after joining the PPP in 2010. Last but not least, we have a wonderful sister by the name of Sister Paduma Hassan. Paduma Hassan is a councillor for the Labour Party. What most people don't know is when Jeremy Corbyn, like me, I'm just being real, me personally, I'm not Labour or Conservative, I just, yeah, do what I do. So but when Jeremy Corbyn was running to become the leader of the Labour Party, she was in charge of promoting his policies and promoting his campaign to so-called BAME communities and to young people. And she was very successful, and she was a very dedicated soldier to Jeremy Corbyn. So Jeremy Corbyn getting the Labour leadership is, I would say, a lot of it's due to this young lady here, you seeing in the hijab, Sister Paduma Hassan. Because when Jeremy Corbyn first started to run, most people don't know, people are thinking, no way, he's gonna get him. But yeah, solidarity. So in 1972, in Mogadishu, Somalia, women in the streets were protesting the imprisonment of Angela Davis, who's a Black community activist from America during the civil rights movement, okay? So in the Somali Post, they show sisters in Somalia campaigning to free Angela Davis. So when people are talking about Black Lives Matter is a new thing, this has been going on for years, okay? So without further ado, thank you very much. If there are any questions, please don't feel shy to ask. I don't bite.
Ismael, thank you very much for that. Very enlightening. We've got a couple of questions coming in already. A couple of thank yous. And I mean, there's one which I hope you'll address before we finish, but how do people contact you?
Okay.
So they can go. Someone asked, are you, Ismael, were you in Mecca to Medina?
Yes, I was in Mecca to Medina. I was in Mecca, so I just told the story. Basically, I was in, when I converted to Islam, I met with Rakeen. I was in a group called Mecca to Medina. While in Mecca to Medina, one of my hobbies was reading history. So when we used to travel around to do tours, I used to read history books, Rakeen will tell you. And then what happened was, my nephew got involved in a gang, so I got involved in youth work. So then when you're rappers, after a while, I was in my mid-30s, I thought I'm getting old for this. I want to get into youth work. So I retired from Mecca to Medina 10 years ago. But Jazakallah, thank you for recognizing me, but because I'm getting a bit chubby nowadays. So Jazakallah.
Okay. There's one question is about the name of the book about the last king of India. If you can.
Which one?
The Last King of India. Was there a particular book? Or was
yes. It was a book. Let me try and see if I can get it.
Okay, from what the exact name of the book was. While you're doing that, there's a question about, do you know what the ethno-linguistic group was of Queen Amina?
Oh.
She was...
Yeah, all I know is that she was from Kano. I did read it, but I'll be honest with you, I can't remember, but she was from Kano, northern Nigeria.
Okay, so likely...
But I could find out for you.
I think we have a sister, a brother Suleiman, who's part of the group, who's from Kano. So, we assume that she might well be Hausa or Fulani, I suppose.
Yes, she is definitely Hausa.
She's definitely Hausa.
Yes, Queen Amina, and she's from Zaria and from Kano.
Oh, she's from Zaria.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, Zaria, Kano, yes. Thank you, yes. Yes, here's what you're talking about. It's called In the Last King of India, Wajid Ali Shah, by British historian Rosie Llewellyn-Jones.
Rosie Llewellyn-Jones.
Yeah, and also there's the writings about them in the Journal of the Faculty of the International and Political Studies of Jagiellonian University.
Okay. One which is not so. This one harps back to, I suppose, it's about Black Lives Matter. It says last year there was a lot of talk after Black Lives Matter about racism in Islam. Do you have anything to say, about that?
Yes. Okay, me personally, I have to say is racism does exist among Muslims. Yes, it does. But I would say that there's some organizations, I'll point out the MCB, I'll point out Mosques and Imams National Advisory Board, I'll point out Islamic Society of Britain. I've been doing some work with them to try to find ways of promoting anti-Blackness in mosques, Muslim organizations, and so forth. So there's some organizations who are trying, but as you know, because these things take time. So if someone would like to get involved in that work in challenging racism within the Muslim community, please contact me, because that's what we're lacking. We're lacking people, because what it is, I come across many brothers who talk about racism in the Muslim Ummah, but when you say, bro, we need to do some work, let's do some work, they're gone. And also, finally, if you can find, there's an initiative I've been advising, they call the Black British Islamic Bureau. If you can find them on Facebook, they're doing some work in challenging racism in the British Muslim Ummah.
Is that with Ahmed James, is that right?
Ahmed James, yes, mashallah, and Bilal Ali Hugh.
Okay. You mentioned Sister Adila, by the way, which I knew very well, and yeah, I can confirm she's a wonderful woman, Sister Adila.
I mean.
There was a question about a magazine. You mentioned an online magazine. One of the. In fact, before that, there's a lot of talk saying thank you for mentioning contemporary women, because often when we talk about even when we talk about good Muslims generally, we look at the past and assume that there are no good people today almost. So
yes, true.
Well, the people are glad that you brought it up to date as well.
Alhamdulillah.
And you mentioned an online magazine by one of the ladies you mentioned.
Yes, so the sister Halima Shade, she started a magazine called the Black Muslim Times. So if you put in the Black Muslim Times into Google, what it is, she started it 3 years ago, but recently she's been doing her masters. So because she's doing her masters, when you're doing your masters, it takes a lot out of you. So she hasn't been updating it lately. Since she's starting her masters, she's kind of taken a pause from it. But to see the articles that are on there, just put into Google the Black Muslim Times, and a lot of great articles there about wonderful Black Muslims from the UK.
Okay, I'll just get a quick point here. Someone has said that racism amongst Muslims is different from racism in Islam. Point taken, I think. Yes. You get that? Racism in Islam is different from racism amongst Muslims. So
yes, I agree with you, Sheikh. Yes, I agree.
There's a question which you can maybe finish on when we get there. What books would you recommend if you want to sort of follow this up, or what's a good starting point? But before you do that, there was another question about some enslaved Africans in the Caribbean identify themselves as Amina people. Do you know if this is connected to Queen Amina? I must admit that's not something I've known of myself.
No, but as we know, and Haj Jamal knows as well, at least, according to Sheikh Abdul Hakim Quick, at least 35% of the slaves that were taken to the Caribbean were from Muslim tribes, Muslim extractions.
Okay, so yeah.
So there's a strong, and like I said, that sister called Dr. Afros, if you ever get a chance to Google her, she names many famous Caribbean anti-slavery activists were Muslim.
Yes, definitely. So in terms of then the books, are there any books that you would recommend as well, good starting points for people to either follow up on this directly, looking at women, or in general, that you would recommend as a good starting point in sort of looking up history?
Me personally, the books I would personally recommend is a book called Seven African and Arabian Wonders of the World by Dr. Khalid Mansour.
I should be typing this in my
Oh, you want to write it?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Seven African and Arabian Wonders of the World by Dr. Tariq Al-Mansour, and Illuminating the Darkness by Habiba Kande. I would say those two would be the best two first, in my opinion. Okay. And also, another book by Sheikh Abdul Hakim Quick called Deeper Roots. Yep. Those would be the three books I would recommend.
Okay, fantastic. Hopefully we'll get them maybe on the notes that follow. If people look at the replay, we can write them in. So
yeah.
Write them out.
I'll write them now.
I think, I think that's sort of the question we come to so far. And I know I've got to draw the line somewhere, or else we'll keep going. But Ismael, I think that's been fascinating. I think I know you have plenty more.
Yes.
The session is till 7:30.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, we have plenty of time.
Most of you, so you can go for a few more minutes. So no need to rush.
Okay.
No
Sorry about that. Okay, I'll see what other. So if you do have questions, please just write them in the Q&A or in the chat, and I'll pick them up, and we'll put them to Ismael. What was the question we had there? You mentioned the online magazine. You mentioned the King of India. What is your own, if you like, route to Islam is the question.
Basically, I'm from a Jamaican Christian family, and basically my brother was looking into Islam. So I was living with my brother for a while. And basically my elder brother was looking into Islam. So he used to be playing Malcolm X lectures, Muhammad Ali lectures, and I used to be listening to a rap group called Public Enemy, and a rapper called Intelligent Hoodlum, and a few others. And some of the rappers that I used to listen to used to mention little Al-Islam, read the Quran, Alhamdulillah, little Islamic references in the rap music I used to listen to. So while I'm listening to that rap music, my brother was, when I used to come home from, partying or whatever, my brother used to be playing the lectures in the house, and I'm thinking, why does he keep on playing this stuff, man? Charles, want to go to sleep. Forgive me, right? So gradually he said to me, listen, you got to listen to this. And then he gave me a book called Malcolm X on Afro-American History. A lot of the book are speeches from when Malcolm X came back from Hajj. So when I read that, I started to look into Islam. Then my friend Alex called me and said, look, I'm going to a place called Hyde Park Corner. Do you want to come? I never heard of Hyde Park Corner. I went to Hyde Park Corner and I met someone called Muhammad Khaja. Muhammad Khaja started talking to me about Islam, about Tawheed, the belief in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he put it all into context. And I thought, oh my gosh, this makes sense. But because I was young, I said, look, I'm a bit young. Let me enjoy my youth and I'll come back to you. So a couple of months later, another friend called me, was looking into Islam as well, and said, look, I want to go to the mosque, but I don't want to go by myself. Can you come with me? I just want to see what the mosque looked like. So I went with my friend to the mosque, and who came in was Muhammad Khaja. So I recognized him. He just said, yeah, I know he never really recognized me. I'm thinking back, he just saw another black man in the mosque. So he said, okay. So he said, I'm going to come to you. So he started talking to me about Islam, clarifying certain things I wasn't sure about, then I embraced Islam. That's the short edited version.
Okay, and in terms of, what was it like? What were the women? What was going on with the women? The women were women becoming Muslim the time you were. What was the route?
No, when I first embraced Islam, there weren't many Black Muslim women, and as far as I know, around me, because all the born Black Muslim women, they moved in social different circles. So at the time, I never hardly seen any Black Muslim women, me personally. So, because I embraced Islam in the mid 1990s, only I would say, yeah. So I never really see them around. So we never knew where to go. And at this time in the mid 1990s, a lot of mosques never, except Central Mosque, of course. That's the only time we used to see the odd Black Muslim woman. We used to go to Central Mosque. But due to, I'm going to keep it real and forgive me, due to a lot of ignorance in many mosques, a lot of Black Muslim sisters were encouraged not to go to the mosques because they're so ignorant, they wouldn't know what to do or what to say. So to avoid you going through a bad experience, don't go to the mosques. This is what I learned later from some Black Muslim sisters. So, and one of the other reasons, which I never mentioned why I've done this, why I have to do this presentation, as a youth worker, there's many young Black Muslim sisters, they don't know their history, they don't know their legacy in Islam. So that's one of the reasons why, because I work with some young Black Muslim sisters, and they just think the history of Black Muslim women are just being slaves. And that's no different from mainstream society. So that's why we've done this presentation.
Okay, fantastic. We've got I think it's the lady Zakiyah Hussein is mentioning about the indigenous names of some of the Caribbean islands that are Arabic names. Example, St. Lucia was Waladi, which I didn't know. Are there any books? Are there any books about that? Do you know about that? Some of the original names or some of the Arabic names that were some of the islands? Sorry if I'm not doing injustice, Zakiyah.
As far as I know, Deeper Roots by Sheikh Abdul Hakim Quick and African Presence in Early America by Dr. Ivan van Sertima.
Okay. So other question, what's I think you've worked with the sort of not terrorist, what do you call it? Anti-radicalization programs that are going out there.
Yes.
What's the state of affairs? This is not just for, obviously we're talking about Black women, queens of African Muslim queens, but what generally then is your take that's going on in the amongst young people, young Muslims in Britain today, if you like? Because obviously you just mentioned that you mentioned some of this so that they get to understand the reality of their history. Do you have to do that with all the Muslims? Is that something you have to do with young Muslims generally? What's going on with young Muslims that you're coming?
As a youth worker, I can say that from my experience with young Muslims, there's around 5 major issues. One is identity crisis, whereby they're not understanding that how can I be British, a Muslim? My family are originally from Seychelles. They're not understanding how they can mesh them. I'm a British Muslim of Seychelles heritage. When you tell them that, they look at you, how could you put that all together? So first thing, identity crisis is a big issue among Muslims. Second issue, there are a lack of youth engagement programs in their community, okay? And I'm a big advocate for British Muslim charities should be forced to keep at least 40% of their money for youth engagement programs in the UK. So when we're seeing our young people ending up in Syria, ending up in various other countries, we can't be blaming other people. We have to look towards ourselves as well, myself included, as a youth worker. Okay, when I see someone who's there, I think, oh my God, I haven't done my job properly. But we need to look at the Muslim charities. Why are they wasting so much money on foolishness, on silliness and wishy-washy tick box exercises? So we need to hold our Muslim charities to account to fund youth programs in our communities. If they don't know who to fund, with all due respect, it's not their cousin, their uncle, their brother-in-law. If they want to know who to fund, which youth programs to fund around the country, I know youth organizers and youth organizations around the country. I'll gladly help them for no charge. Okay. That's the second thing. The third thing is, many of our, within the madrasa system, this is my opinion, okay? Our young people are taught just to recite the Quran, but many of our young people are not taught to understand what they're reading. So when we go into prisons, we meet many young boys who are Hafiz of Quran. They will tell you, you don't need to tell me about Islam. I'm a Hafiz. This is if you talk to anyone that works with Muslims in prison, they will tell you the prison is packed with Muslim Hafiz of Quran. So I'm a strong believer that within the madrasa system, we need to be teaching life skills, youth empowerment, and personal development and leadership skills within the madrasa program. Because it's just like we're just teaching our young people just to recite Quran and then that's it. Anyway, fourth thing, because we know, because of Islamophobia is rife in society, many of our young people, they feel victimized, marginalized, disenfranchised, dehumanized, and demonized by mainstream society, okay? Because of COVID, I think it's kind of cooled down, but pre-COVID. So because of this, there are many Muslims who think, you know what, this system don't like me, why should I bother? The system is racist, whatever. So this is an issue. So many of our young people are in this mind state. Then the fifth thing I would say is we need Muslim role models, because there are Muslim role models, there are brilliant Muslim role models, but we need our Muslim role models to be more accessible so they can empower the youth. That's my take on my 5 things. Okay.
Fantastic. I hope that's not considered off topic. I think it was brilliant that you addressed that. There's one question which might entail you another presentation. It says, apart from Ayman in the Prophet, in the time of the Prophet, which classical females were of African heritage? But
Halima, may I be pleased with that. The wet nurse of the Prophet ﷺ, and Sumaya, may I be pleased with that. I'll be real with you. I don't go in. I only go into the Sahabas and that's it. The other things I leave to the scholars. I leave to Sheikh Michael Momissa. I leave to Hajj Uthman. I leave to Sheikh Ibrahim Osei. I leave it to them because they're the scholars. I only touch on the Sahabas, but there were many. They weren't just one, and they weren't just two. There were many.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I don't want to be taking it too much away from the thing of the presentation, but some of the questions have been about in terms of the racism amongst Muslims. Do you think there's been an improvement? Is one of the questions, and I'll throw in with that. There's do you think, another question? Do you think Prevent is also part of the alienation of Muslim youth? That program Prevent.
Well, 2 good questions. With racism among Muslims, I would say it's getting a bit better. I would say because a lot of the so-called uncles, old guard, with all due respect, they're kind of withering away. So their sons and the next generation are here who are more open-minded. So they might have went university with a Winston. They might have went college with a Delroy. So they have a bit more of an understanding of multiculturalism, of the Black community, of the white community. So I would say it's getting a bit better, but there's a long way to go. But we need more Black Muslims to step up, to work together, organize, and to take it home. That's that question. Now, with regards to Prevent, okay, right, I believe personally, what it is, there's good and bad and ugly in Prevent. And what it is, within Prevent, there's some opportunists who used to be heavily funded with Prevent. I'm not gonna mention their names. They're heavily funded. My wife said to keep quiet, but I have to talk. There are many personalities who have been heavily funded by Prevent. Now, because they were doing dodgy stuff, let's be real, they got ostracized by Prevent. Now, these same people are on the TV cursing Prevent. So we have to understand when some people on TV are cursing Prevent, many of them, not all of them, have hidden agendas. I believe personally, if we wanted, as we know, 99.999999% of Muslims are not extremists. But unfortunately, some of our young people have been led astray. But I believe the best way that we could I believe there needs to be an alternative, but it needs to be funded by the Muslim charities. The Muslim charities need to stop blood-sucking the ummah and wasting the money to giving to their cousins and uncles and nieces and nephews in foreign countries, and step up to their responsibilities and fund youth programs in the UK, in Birmingham, London, Manchester, Bradford, Sheffield. Now, briefly, Shamima Begum, there are over 200 Shamima Begums right now on the Syrian border. So we hear about her now. We're going to hear another 199, okay? So if the Muslim charities don't step up, it's going to come back to them, okay? So whoever knows a Muslim charity or works with a Muslim charity, tell them, please.
Okay.
So I believe there needs to be Muslims need to stop complaining about Prevent, and Muslims need to organize their own anti-extremism project, because the reality is extremism does exist. It's a very minute, minuscule level, but still minuscule level is still too much.
But I suppose in that thing, we have to sort of thank Kaiser and her team at MACFEST for actually doing something that takes there and you know, and gives us another face that not just non-Muslims can see, but Muslims can see.
Yes.
You know, and that's obviously very, very important work, and it's given us the platform to be here today, which is a great thing. So we're thankful for that. In terms of what next for you, you mentioned your book. Do you want to talk something a little bit about what? Obviously, the name sort of speaks for itself.
Yes. So basically, I've finished a book called the Black History of the UK, the Black African in brackets African and Afro-Caribbean history of the UK, in brackets pre-Windrush, because there seems to be a misconception that Black people only came here in Windrush. So as someone who studied Black history under Sheikh Anta Diop, Dr. Ivan Ben Sertima, and many other historians, we see that African and Afro-Caribbean people have been coming to the UK for thousands of years. So when I went to pick up my son from school during Black History Month a few years ago, and I just went to my son and says, "It's Black History Month." He said, "Yeah, Dad, yeah." Because we used to do Black History things at home during Black History Month, which we still do. So I said, "What did you learn about Black History Month today in school?" He said, "We just learned about slavery." I said, "What? That's all you learned?" He said, "Slavery. That's all we learned about at school, slavery." So we never learned about no Black achievers, no Black contributors to British society, no Black contributors to British politics, no Black contribution to the British royal family. Unknown to many, Meghan Markle is not the first person of color in the royal family. If people could Google and do some research on Queen Charlotte, and there are many others, there are a few others as well. So I thought it was best for me to put it in a book. And as someone who works in school, same way I said the Muslim youths are going through identity crisis, I believe many of African and Afro-Caribbean young people are going through identity crisis. That's why I'm writing the book, the Black History of the UK, pre-Windrush.
Okay. There's, I think it's referring back to your previous answer saying, isn't the Ummah transnational? You were saying about sort of concentrating on doing things locally. So should they not be concerned with the Ummah, you know, abroad? I'll just say something on this because obviously, you know, I work a lot with the whole thing of Zakat. And you know that our whole philosophy, not even philosophy, it's what the Zakat's about, is that really Zakat should be collected and distributed locally. You know, that and the local can be, you know, where you are, and then can go further, then you go further afield if nobody needs it. And so we contend that the nature of Zakat has been, you know, changed. So what we do say is that people should give Sadaqah wherever they want to do it, abroad, family, but that's not really the nature of zakat. So I talk about this thing, and what we've discovered is that a lot of people don't believe that zakat is needed locally. They say, well, people have the social security and these things. So a lot of people feel, you know, no one's starving or, you know, in poverty here in the UK. Obviously, my own experience is I've been someone who's actually collected zakat locally and distributed it locally. Really shocking to know just how much zakat is needed locally, and it forced us to understand which Muslims we live next to locally, because you have to get to know what's going on. So yeah, anything to add to that?
Sheikh, you explained it. I could never add to that. That's just, yeah. All I could say is that people have, like you said, Sheikh, people have the misconception thinking in England there are no poor people, no one suffering. I get calls regularly from people who've lost their jobs. There are many Muslim ex-offenders who come out of prison, they can't get a job. Youth unemployment among British Muslims is terrible. So many young Muslims who are graduating from university and they can't get a job. And the reality is, and their families, they're from low wage households. So there's a big pressure. So there are a lot of families here in the UK who are suffering. And of course, yes, we help the people who are abroad. But if we were to look into how much money is wasted on bureaucracy here in the UK, if it was wasted on UK projects, I have no problem. But there's too much money wasted on foolishness in the UK.
But I think that's in a lot, especially major charities. I think that's a lot. We know that many major charities take a lot of what they get for you know, administration, etc. So yeah, that's understandable. Your book question, is it aimed at adults or children?
My aim was for teenagers, actually. So aim for teenagers and adults.
Okay. I think a follow-up to the last question is saying that the people in UK are not starving or suffering genocide or living in refugee camps. And I think there's a point taken. And do you know what? Yeah, you can do that. I know you have to. People are moved to give where they give. Although my only thought would be that isn't the nature of zakat. Zakat is a local. Give as much sadaqah as you want to. But if you give sadaqah, then enough sadaqah, you've got no zakat to pay anyway. If you use the money. Yes. But of course we're all moved by people, by things that we see on TV and reported otherwise, or things we hear about from directly from people. So definitely we're not saying we should not be concerned with that. Not at all. Someone's mentioned another book, African. Oh, that's you writing that, is it?
Yes, sorry, yeah.
African Presence in Early Europe by Dr. Ivan van Sertima. Okay, and another book there. I'm just checking if there are more questions. We've got we still got time for any questions. I wonder if Kaiser has any questions herself.
I've written one there in the chat. It was about research. You met so many women, you interviewed women. How did all that take place? And just give us a feel of that. Amazing women. How many months, how many years, what happened?
Oh, how I found out the information.
Yeah, all these women that you're celebrating here.
MashaAllah, yes.
I'm a writer myself, so I'm talking about how you managed to do it.
That's fine. It came over the years. Sheikh Amal will tell you, in 2005, 2004, 2005, we used to organize events to empower African, Afro-Caribbean Muslims. And alhamdulillah, Sheikh Haj Amal helped to get our sponsorship on some occasions. And we used to invite Sheikh Abdul Hakim Quick. So Sheikh Abdul Hakim Quick is an African-American historian. And when he used to be invited by various other organizations, he used to call me and said, look, I want to do something to empower African and Afro-Caribbean Muslims. I got some information. So we used to organize either something in a small hall, or sometimes we used to organize something at a brother called Muhammad Solomon. We used to organize it at his house, where he used to do a presentation. So that was the first time I thought, oh my gosh. So he used to educate us. He said, look, you have to understand, not because a lot of so-called scholars and imams, when you go to a mosque, when it's Black History Month, all they would say is that so-and-so was a slave, and that was it. So there was no form of aspirational people that were really emphasized who weren't slaves. So he made it, so I would say Sheikh Abdul Hakim Quick was one of the ones that triggered it. And then I just took a mental note. And then when there's a book called 7 African and Arabian Wonders of the World by Dr. Khalid Mansour. Dr. Khalid Mansour came to the UK when I first embraced Islam. And he done a lecture in Brixton. And because he was saying a lot of some of these stories, some people couldn't believe it. They said, this isn't true. They were challenging him. So I said, no, I need to find out this for myself. And my father always taught me when I was young, when someone comes to you with information, check it out for yourself. So that's why I used to go to the libraries, go to various exhibitions, go to the museums. And I actually went to Nigeria. When I went to Nigeria, we went to the Uthman Dan Fodio Museum, and that's what we learned about Nana Asma'u. So I thought, oh my gosh. And then what amazed me more is when I came back, when you speak to a lot of African and Afro-Caribbean Muslim women, many of them do not even know about famous Black Muslims in history. So that's what triggered it through. So it's been amassed over 15 years. So I would say from 2005. And that's when I started to get more involved in history and started getting the books by Dr. Ivan van Sertima, started to get and with Sheikh Abdul Hakim Quick, he used to give me his book, Deeper Roots. He gave me some DVDs. Sorry, this was before YouTube. So I used to watch. And then there was another scholar I used to listen to called Suleiman Niang. He used to do a lot of lectures on Islam in Africa. Suleiman Niang, may Allah bless his soul. Yeah, I hope he's okay, but yeah, just in case. So I used to watch his lectures. So this was a result of over 15 years. And then only when my daughter was telling me the issue she was going through, and I was telling her, and I realized she never really knew. So I thought, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do a presentation to show her and show her the evidences as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Ismail. I want to say that there are some wonderful events as part of this series from MACFEST. And I hope that, I'm not sure if people's details are kept automatically, but I hope they are. If not, please make sure you visit the MACFEST website and click the link there so you can see all the events that are going on, some wonderful events. And I'm really glad and privileged that I've been able to be a part of it. Thank you, Ismail, for your presentation.
No, thank you.
I know we've taken you off track quite a time. It's all useful.
Thank you so much, Amal, to you as well for fabulous hosting.
Thank you, Hajamal. Yeah, wonderful hosting.
No, but amazing as always, Ismail. Riveting, really.
Thank you. Thanks to you, Sister Kasra.
I'm really looking forward to watching the video again. I've listed some of our events. So tomorrow evening, if you have time, guys, 5 o'clock, Muslim women converts from 4 countries. Saturday morning, an interview with an Afghanistan women politician, as well as in the evening, politicians from around the world. And then on Sunday, amazing cultural event. You name it, we are doing it. Please join us when you can. Thank you so much, everyone. Good evening and assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah. Nice meeting you all. Assalamu alaikum.